You turned my studio into a nursery for your kid. Are you out of your mind, Sienna? This is my house. I stared at the pastel-colored walls, the crib, the changing table, all of it replacing cherished art supplies and canvases. My sanctuary, my creative space, had been invaded and transformed without my consent. Sienna stood there, arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. Oh, come on, Natalie, it's not like you were using it anyway, and little Olivia needs her own room. My blood boiled. How dare she make decisions about my home, my life? I had raised my son Ethan in this house. I had poured my heart and soul into every brushstroke, every piece of art created within these walls, and now my daughter-in-law had the audacity to dismiss it all. Using it? This is my studio, Sienna. My work, my passion. You had no right to do this without even asking me. I could feel my voice rising, my hands trembling with anger. Sienna rolled her eyes. Passion? Please. It's just a hobby, Natalie. It's time you focus on what really matters. Family. Olivia needs her grandmother, and you need to be more involved. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Involved? They barely let me see my granddaughter as it was. Ethan and Sienna only reached out when they needed something like free childcare or a place to stay. I am involved, Sienna, but I also have my own life, my own dreams. You can't just barge in here and take over. Sienna's eyes narrowed. Dreams? At your age? It's time to grow up, Natalie. This house is too big for just you. It's perfect for raising Olivia, and you should be grateful we're keeping you in her life. Grateful? I wanted to scream. This was my home, my sanctuary. And now it felt like a prison, my own family turning against me. Ethan appeared in the doorway, his face a mix of guilt and determination. Mom, we need to talk. Sienna and I have decided it's best for everyone if we move in here permanently. You don't need all this space, and we can help take care of you. Take care of me? I felt like I had been slapped. I was a successful artist, a strong, independent woman. I didn't need to be taken care of, especially not by a son who had become a stranger and a daughter-in-law who viewed me as nothing more than an inconvenience. I looked around the room once more, my eyes settling on a framed picture of Ethan as a child, grinning proudly as he held up a finger painting. My heart ached for the boy he had been, the bond we had shared. But that boy was gone, replaced by a man who had chosen his wife's desires over his own mother's well-being. I realized then that I had to make a choice, too. A choice to fight for myself, for my art, for the life I had built. I turned to face Ethan and Sienna, my voice steady, despite the pain in my heart. No, this is my house, and I won't let you take it from me. I won't let you erase who I am, what I've accomplished. If you can't respect that, then I'm afraid you're no longer welcome here. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Sienna's face twisted in anger, while Ethan looked shocked, as if he had never considered I would stand up for myself. But I had, and I would continue to do so. For my art, for my independence, for the life I had fought so hard to create, no one, not even my own family, could take that away from me. As I stood there, reeling from the shock of seeing my studio transformed into a nursery, my mind drifted back to the day Ethan first introduced me to Sienna. It was a warm summer afternoon, and they had dropped by unexpectedly, interrupting my work on a new painting. Mom, this is Sienna, my girlfriend, Ethan had said, his arm wrapped around her waist. Sienna, meet my mother, Natalie Holloway. Sienna had given me a once-over, her eyes critical and unimpressed. So you're the famous artist, she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Ethan's told me so much about you and your quaint little house. I had bristled at her words, but for Ethan's sake, I forced a smile. It's lovely to meet you, Sienna. Please come in and make yourself at home. As they stepped inside, Sienna's gaze had wandered over my artwork, her lips curling into a smirk. How charming, she remarked. It's all so outdated, don't you think? I mean, who even buys this kind of art anymore? Ethan had shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. I, on the other hand, had felt a surge of anger. How dare this woman, this stranger, come into my home and insult my life's work? But I had bitten my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of Sienna's campaign to undermine me at every turn. After their wedding, Ethan and Sienna rarely visited. They were always too busy, too caught up in their own lives to spare a thought for me. The only time they reached out was when Olivia was born, and even then it was a brief, impersonal phone call. "Hey, Mom," Ethan had said, sounding distracted. "Just wanted to let you know that Sienna had the baby, a girl, Olivia. We'll send you some pictures when we can." And that was it. No invitation to come and meet my granddaughter, no offer to bring her over for a visit. It was as if I had ceased to exist in their world, relegated to the role of a distant, inconvenient relative. But I had refused to let it get to me. I threw myself into my art, pouring my heart and soul into every piece. I renovated my studio, creating the perfect space to bring my visions to life. It was my sanctuary, my escape from the pain of Ethan's rejection. And then, out of the blue, Sienna had started showing an interest in my house. She would drop by unannounced, Olivia in tow, and wander through the rooms, making comments about how perfect it would be for raising a child. "You know, Natalie," she had said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "this house is just too big for one person. It's such a waste of space, and poor little Olivia, she needs a yard to play in, a room of her own. Don't you think it's time you considered downsizing?" I had seen right through her act, but I bit my tongue, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. But Sienna was relentless. She started dropping Olivia off more and more often, expecting me to provide free childcare at a moment's notice. "Natalie, I need you to watch Olivia for a few hours," she would say, already halfway out the door. "Ethan and I have plans, and we can't find a sitter. You don't mind, do you?" "Of course you don't. What else do you have to do?" I would grit my teeth and take Olivia, but inside I was seething. How dare Sienna treat me like a convenient babysitter, disrupting my work and my life without a second thought? But even that paled in comparison to what came next. One day, I returned home from a gallery opening to find Ethan and Sienna's car parked in my driveway. As I stepped inside, I heard the sound of laughter coming from the living room, and there they were, Ethan, Sienna, and Olivia, surrounded by boxes and suitcases. They had moved in, without so much as a word of warning. "Surprise!" Sienna had said, her smile wide and insincere. "We've decided to stay with you for a while, Natalie. Isn't that wonderful? Now you can spend all the time you want with Olivia, and we can be one big, happy family." I had stood there, speechless, as the reality of the situation sank in. My home, my sanctuary, had been invaded, and there was nothing I could do about it. Life with Ethan and Sienna under my roof was a living nightmare. Sienna treated me like a live-in maid, barking orders and demanding I cater to her every whim. "Natalie, Olivia needs her breakfast," she would yell from the living room, not bothering to look up from her phone. "And make sure it's organic, none of that processed junk." I would grit my teeth and head to the kitchen, resentment bubbling up inside me. But what choice did I have? They had invaded my home, and I felt powerless to stop them. Sienna's demands only escalated as the days went by. She expected me to cook, clean, and care for Olivia around the clock, leaving me no time for my art or my own life. "Natalie, the house is a mess," she would screech, gesturing to a single toy on the floor. "How can you expect me to live like this? And where's dinner? Ethan will be home soon, and you know how he gets when he's hungry." I would bite back a retort and get to work, my hands shaking with barely suppressed rage. But even as I cleaned and cooked, I could feel my spirit withering, my passion for life slowly draining away. Ethan, for his part, seemed oblivious to the toll his wife's behavior was taking on me. He would come home from work, kiss Sienna on the cheek, and retreat to the den, leaving me to deal with her demands and insults. "Ethan, your mother is impossible," I would hear Sienna complain through the thin walls. "She's so lazy and ungrateful. We're doing her a favor by being here, and she acts like it's a burden." I wanted to scream, to storm into the room and set them both straight. But I knew it would only make things worse. So I stayed silent, my anger and frustration growing with each passing day. To escape the constant chaos, I started spending more and more time at my studio. It was the only place I felt truly at peace, surrounded by my art and my memories. But even that small comfort was short-lived. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of catering to Sienna's demands, I returned home to find my studio door ajar. My heart racing, I pushed it open, only to be met with a sight that made my blood run cold. The room had been completely transformed, my art supplies and canvases replaced by pastel walls and a crib. "Surprise," Sienna said, appearing behind me with a smug grin. "We thought it was time Olivia had her own room, And your studio was just going to waste. Don't you love it? I stared at her, my mouth agape. My art, my supplies, where are they? Sienna waved a dismissive hand. Oh, I had Ethan throw all that junk out. It was just taking up space and you're not using it anyway. Besides, it's time you focused on what really matters. Family. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My art, my passion, my very identity, all of it had been erased, thrown away like garbage. Ethan appeared in the doorway, his expression a mix of guilt and determination. Mom, we need to talk. Sienna and I have been thinking, and we've decided it's best if we take over the house permanently. You don't need all this space, and we can take care of you. Take care of me? I wanted to laugh. More like control me, erase me, strip away everything that made me who I was. But as I looked at their faces, so smug and self-assured, I realized that arguing was futile. They had made up their minds, and nothing I said would change that. So I did the only thing I could. I turned and walked away, my heart breaking with every step. I had lost my home, my art, and now it seemed my very sense of self. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm me, a small spark of anger flickered to life in my chest. They may have taken everything from me, but I refused to let them break me. Somehow, someway, I would find a way to reclaim my life and make them pay for what they had done. I stormed out of the house, my heart pounding with rage and disbelief. How could they do this to me? My own son and his wife, treating me like a servant in my own home, destroying the one thing that brought me joy and purpose. I walked for hours, my feet carrying me aimlessly through the streets. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. My entire life had been upended, and I felt lost and alone. As the sun began to set, I found myself standing outside a familiar door. It was the home of my oldest friend, Laura, a successful lawyer who had always been there for me through thick and thin. I hesitated for a moment, my pride warring with my desperation. But as I raised my hand to knock, the door swung open, and Laura stood there, her eyes wide with concern. Natalie? What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, a sob tore from my throat, and I collapsed into her arms, my body shaking with grief and exhaustion. Laura held me as I cried, stroking my hair and murmuring words of comfort. When I finally pulled away, she led me inside and sat me down on the couch, pressing a mug of hot tea into my hands. Tell me everything, she said, her voice gentle but firm, and so I did. I told her about Sienna's cruelty, about Ethan's betrayal, about the destruction of my studio and the theft of my home. I poured out all the pain and anger I had been holding inside, my words tumbling over each other in a rush of emotion. When I finished, Laura was silent for a long moment, her brow furrowed in thought. Then she leaned forward, her eyes blazing with determination. Natalie, listen to me. What they did to you is unforgivable, but you can't let them win. You have to fight back. I shook my head, my voice trembling. How? They've taken everything from me. I have nothing left. Laura smiled, a fierce, predatory grin that sent a shiver down my spine. That's where you're wrong. You have the law on your side. She stood up and walked over to her desk, rifling through a stack of papers. I've been doing some research, and I think I've found a way to get your house back. Legally, they have no right to be there without your consent. My heart leapt with hope, but I quickly tamped it down. But Ethan, he's my son. I can't just kick him out on the street. Laura's expression softened, but her voice remained firm. Natalie, I know you love your son, but he made his choice when he sided with Sienna over you. He needs to face the consequences of his actions. She handed me a sheaf of papers, her eyes glinting with determination. Sign these, and we can start the process of evicting them from your home. It won't be easy, but I'll be with you every step of the way. I stared at the papers, my hands shaking. Could I really do this? Could I turn against my own flesh and blood, even after everything they had done to me? But as I thought of Sienna's smug face, of the callous way she had destroyed my studio and my life, I felt a surge of anger and resolve. They had brought this on themselves, and I refused to be a victim any longer. I took the pen from Laura's hand and signed my name with a flourish. Let's do this, I said, my voice steady and strong. Laura grinned, her eyes sparkling with mischief. That's the Natalie I know and love. Watch out, Sienna and Ethan. The tables are about to turn. As I left Laura's house that night, I felt a sense of purpose and determination that I hadn't felt in years. I may have lost my home and my family, but I refused to lose myself. I would fight for what was mine, and I would make them pay for what they had done. One way or another, justice would be served. The next morning, I woke up on Laura's couch, my body stiff and sore from the unfamiliar sleeping arrangements. But as I stretched and yawned, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. I was done being a doormat, done letting Sienna and Ethan walk all over me. It was time to take back what was mine. I showered and dressed quickly, then headed into the kitchen where Laura was already waiting, a cup of coffee in hand. "You ready for this?" she asked, her eyes searching my face. I nodded, my jaw set with resolve. "More than ready. Let's do this." We drove to my house in silence, the weight of what we were about to do hanging heavy in the air. As we pulled up to the curb, I saw Ethan's car in the driveway, and my stomach clenched with nerves. But I pushed through the fear, marching up to the front door with Laura by my side. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell, my heart pounding in my chest. A moment later, the door swung open, and Sienna stood there, her face twisted with annoyance. "What do you want?" she snapped, her eyes narrowing as she saw Laura. I stepped forward, my voice steady and calm. "I want my house back, Sienna, and I want you and Ethan out of it, today." Sienna laughed, a harsh, grating sound that set my teeth on edge. "Are you serious? This is our home now, Natalie? You signed it over to us, remember?" I shook my head, a small smile playing at the corners of my mouth. "That's where you're wrong, Sienna. I never signed anything. This house is still legally mine, and you have no right to be here without my consent." Sienna's face paled, and she took a step back, her eyes darting to Ethan, who had appeared behind her, his expression wary and uncertain. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, his voice hesitant. I turned to him, my heart breaking even as I spoke the words. "I'm sorry, Ethan, but I can't let you and Sienna continue to treat me this way. You need to leave, both of you. Now." Ethan's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the little boy he had once been, the one who had loved me unconditionally. But then his expression hardened, and he shook his head. "We're not going anywhere, Mom. This is our home now, and you can't make us leave." Laura stepped forward, her voice cold and professional. "Actually, she can. I have a court order here that says you and Sienna are to vacate the premises immediately. If you refuse, we'll have no choice but to call the police." Sienna's face twisted with rage, and she lunged forward, her hands clawed like talons. "You bitch!" she screeched, her voice shrill and ugly. "You can't do this to us. We're family." I stepped back, my heart hammering in my chest. But Laura was already moving, placing herself between me and Sienna like a human shield. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated Natalie," she said, her voice like steel. "Now, are you going to leave peacefully, or do I need to make that call?" For a long, tense moment, no one moved. Then Ethan's shoulders slumped, and he turned to Sienna, his voice low and defeated. "Come on, Sienna, let's just go. It's not worth it." Sienna's face contorted with fury, but she allowed Ethan to lead her away, slamming the door behind them with a final vicious curse. I stood there, my legs shaking beneath me, as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. I had done it. I had taken back my home, my life, my dignity. But even as relief washed over me, I felt a pang of sadness for what I had lost. My son, my grandchild, the family I had once dreamed of having. Laura's hand on my shoulder brought me back to the present, and I turned to her, my eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." Laura smiled, her eyes soft with understanding. "That's what friends are for, Natalie. Now let's get this place cleaned up and start putting your life back together. One step at a time." As we set to work, clearing out the remnants of Sienna and Ethan's brief occupation, I felt a sense of hope and possibility that I hadn't felt in years. I may have lost my family, but I had found myself again. And that was worth more than any house or studio could ever be. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. I threw myself into my art, pouring all my pain and anger onto the canvas. But even as I lost myself in the work, I couldn't shake the sense of loss and betrayal that haunted me. Ethan and Sienna had taken more than just my home and my studio. They had taken my sense of family, my belief in the goodness of people, and I didn't know how to get that back. I stopped answering calls and emails, stopped leaving the house except for the most necessary errands. I became a ghost in my own life, haunting the rooms of my empty house like a specter. But then one day, everything changed. I was in the kitchen making a cup of tea when the doorbell rang. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the thought of facing another human being filled me with dread. But something compelled me to answer the door, some deep-seated instinct that told me this was important. I opened the door to find Laura standing there, her face grave and serious. "Natalie, we need to talk." I stepped aside to let her in, my stomach churning with nerves. "What's going on?" Laura sat down at the kitchen table, her hands clasped in front of her. "I've been doing some digging into Ethan and Sienna's finances, and I found something that I think you need to see." She slid a folder across the table, and I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were bank statements, credit card bills, and legal documents, all painting a picture of financial ruin and desperation. "They're broke, Natalie. Completely and utterly broke. They've been living off credit cards and loans for months, ever since Ethan lost his job, and now they're drowning in debt, with no way out." I stared at the papers, my mind reeling. But how? They always seemed so successful, so put together. Laura shook her head, her eyes sad. "It was all a facade, Natalie. They were living beyond their means, trying to keep up appearances, and now it's all come crashing down around them." I felt a surge of anger and bitterness. Good, they deserve it after what they did to me. But even as I said the words, I felt a pang of guilt. Ethan was still my son, no matter what he had done. And the thought of him suffering, of my granddaughter living in poverty, made my heart ache. Laura leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Natalie, I know you're still hurting, but this is your chance to be the bigger person, to show them what real love and forgiveness look like." I shook my head, my eyes filling with tears. "I don't know if I can, Laura. They hurt me so badly. I don't know if I can ever trust them again." Laura reached out and took my hand, her touch warm and comforting. "You don't have to trust them, Natalie, but you can choose to let go of the anger and the pain. You can choose to move forward, to build a new life for yourself, one that isn't defined by what they did to you." I sat there for a long moment, letting her words sink in. She was right. I had been holding on to my anger and my bitterness for so long, letting it consume me. But what good had it done? It hadn't changed what had happened, hadn't made me feel any better. Maybe it was time to let go. To forgive, not for their sake, but for my own. I took a deep breath and nodded, my voice shaking. "Okay, I'll try." Laura smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "That's all anyone can ask, Natalie, and I'll be here for you every step of the way." As she left that day, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, that there would be setbacks and challenges along the way. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, I could find my way back to the person I used to be, the person who believed in love and family and the goodness of people. And that was a start. A few days later, I found myself standing outside Ethan and Sienna's apartment building, my heart pounding in my chest. Laura had arranged for us to meet with them to try and find a way forward, but as I climbed the stairs to their unit, I couldn't shake the sense of dread that filled me. What if they didn't want to see me? What if they blamed me for their financial troubles? I took a deep breath and knocked on the door, my hand shaking slightly. A moment later it swung open to reveal Ethan, his face haggard and drawn. "Mom," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "What are you doing here?" I swallowed hard, trying to find the right words. I heard about your financial troubles, and I wanted to see if there was anything I could do to help." Ethan's face twisted with anger, and he stepped back, his arms crossed over his chest. "Oh, so now you want to help? After you kicked us out of our home and left us with nothing?" I flinched at his words, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Ethan, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but I'm here because I care about you, and I don't want to see you suffer." Sienna appeared behind him, her face hard and cold. "Suffer? We're already suffering, thanks to you. You ruined our lives, Natalie, and now you have the nerve to show up here and pretend like you care?" I felt a surge of anger, but I pushed it down. "I'm not pretending, Sienna. I do care, and I want to make things right." Laura stepped forward, her voice calm and professional. Ethan, Sienna, I know this is a difficult situation, but we're here to help. Natalie has offered to provide financial assistance to help you get back on your feet. Ethan's eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of hope in his face, but then his expression hardened, and he shook his head. We don't need your charity, Mom. We'll figure this out on our own. Sienna nodded, her lips curled in a sneer. That's right. We don't need anything from you, not after what you did to us. I felt my heart sink, but I refused to give up. Please, Ethan, I know I made mistakes, I know I hurt you, but I'm trying to make things right. I'm trying to be there for you, the way a mother should. Ethan's face softened, and for a moment I thought he might relent. But then Sienna stepped forward, her eyes blazing with fury. You're not his mother anymore, Natalie. You lost that right when you betrayed us, when you chose your precious art over your own family. I felt like I had been slapped, but I forced myself to stay calm, to keep my voice steady. Sienna, I know you're angry, but please don't punish Olivia for my mistakes. She needs her father and she needs a stable home. Let me help you, for her sake, if not for your own. Sienna's face twisted with rage, and she stepped forward, her finger jabbing into my chest. Don't you dare use Olivia against us. We're her parents, not you, and we'll decide what's best for her. Ethan put a hand on her arm, his voice low and warning. Sienna, calm down. This isn't helping. But Sienna shook him off, her eyes never leaving mine. No, Ethan, I'm done playing nice. I'm done pretending like everything is okay. Your mother is a selfish, manipulative bitch, and I won't let her anywhere near our daughter. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me, but I forced myself to stand my ground to keep my voice steady. I'm sorry you feel that way, Sienna, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm Olivia's grandmother, and I will always be a part of her life, whether you like it or not. Sienna's face contorted with fury, and for a moment I thought she might strike me. But then Ethan stepped between us, his voice hard and cold. I think you should go, Mom. We'll handle this on our own. I felt my heart break, but I nodded, my eyes filling with tears. Okay, Ethan, if that's what you want, but know that I'm here for you, always, and I love you, no matter what. As Laura and I walked away, I felt a sense of defeat and despair. I had tried to make things right, to be the bigger person, but it seemed like it was too little, too late. But even as I felt the weight of my failures pressing down on me, I knew I couldn't give up. I had to keep trying, to keep fighting for my family, no matter how long it took or how much it hurt, because that's what love was, and that's what I had to believe in, even when everything else seemed lost. A year passed, and life went on. I threw myself into my art, channeling all my pain and anger into my work, and slowly, gradually, I started to heal. I heard snippets of news about Ethan and Sienna through the grapevine. Their marriage was crumbling, torn apart by financial strain and Sienna's refusal to work. Ethan was drowning in debt, barely able to keep a roof over their heads. Part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. They had brought this on themselves, with their greed and entitlement. But another part of me ached for my son, for the little boy he had once been. And then one day, the phone rang. It was Ethan, his voice small and broken. Mom, he said, his words slurred and heavy. I need your help, please. I hesitated, my heart torn between anger and compassion. But in the end, I couldn't turn him away. He was my son, and I loved him no matter what. I drove to his apartment, my stomach churning with nerves. When I knocked on the door, it swung open to reveal Ethan, his face gaunt and haggard. Mom, he said, his eyes filling with tears. I'm so sorry for everything. I stepped inside, my heart breaking at the sight of their tiny, cramped apartment. Olivia was nowhere to be seen, and Sienna was passed out on the couch, a bottle of vodka clutched in her hand. Ethan, I said, my voice gentle but firm. What's going on? He collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. I can't do this anymore, Mom. The debt, the fighting, the constant stress, it's killing me. I sat down beside him, my hand on his shoulder. I'm here for you, Ethan, but I can't fix this for you. You need to take responsibility for your actions, for the choices you've made. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. I know, Mom, and I will. But I need your help. I need to get away from Sienna, to start over. Can Olivia and I stay with you, just for a little while? I hesitated, my mind racing with doubts and fears. But in the end, I knew I couldn't turn him away. not when he needed me the most. "Of course," I said, my voice soft and tender. "You're always welcome in my home, Ethan. Both of you." He hugged me then, his body shaking with sobs, and for a moment I felt like I had my little boy back, the one who had always run to me for comfort and love. But as I helped him pack his bags and gather Olivia's things, I couldn't shake the sense of unease that filled me. Sienna was still passed out on the couch, oblivious to the world around her, and I knew that when she woke up, there would be hell to pay. We were just about to leave when she stirred, her eyes blinking open in confusion. "Ethan?" she mumbled, her words slurred and heavy. "Where are you going?" Ethan froze, his face pale and drawn. "I'm leaving, Sienna. I can't do this anymore. I'm taking Olivia, and we're going to stay with my mom for a while." Sienna struggled to her feet, her face twisted with rage. "Like hell you are," she snarled, her eyes flashing with fury. "You're not taking my daughter anywhere, you worthless piece of shit." I stepped between them, my voice calm but firm. "Sienna, please. This isn't good for Olivia. She needs stability and love. And right now, Ethan can provide that for her." Sienna laughed, a harsh, grating sound that set my teeth on edge. "Love? You don't know the first thing about love, you selfish bitch. You're just trying to steal my family, to turn them against me." I shook my head, my heart heavy with sadness. "No, Sienna. I'm trying to help them, to give them a chance at a better life. But I can't do that if you won't let me." She lunged at me then, her hands clawed and scratching. But Ethan pulled her back, his voice hard and cold. "Enough, Sienna. We're leaving, and that's final. You can either accept it, or you can fight it. But either way, it's happening." Sienna collapsed to the floor, her body shaking with sobs. And as we walked out the door, Olivia clutched tight in Ethan's arms, body. I couldn't help but feel a pang of pity for her. She had lost everything, just like I had. But unlike me, she had no one to turn to, no one to help her pick up the pieces. And as we drove away, the city lights fading in the rearview mirror, I knew that our journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome, but for now we were together, and that was enough.
Get $10 billion ready, then vanish. We'll make sure you encounter the underworld's horrors first if you don't pay. Justin, who appeared to be the leader, surrounded Miss Harrington and me with his mafia members as he spoke. They must have been regularly extorting money by utilizing this strategy, overwhelming their victim with numbers. Beside me, I sensed Miss Harrington shivering a little. Not only was their method of earning money shameful, but it was also completely pitiful to threaten a woman. Unless they were transferred to a rehabilitation center and taught a hard lesson, these individuals would not change. It seems that Justin understood that I was not going to comply with his requests. He mumbled to his troops, rolling his shoulders, "Let's take him down all at once." I cracked my neck and stepped forward as they closed in on me. Henry is my name. I'm in my 40s and serve as the CEO of an 8-company chauffeur. I work for Miss Harrington, a savvy entrepreneur who started a startup in her 30s and swiftly expanded it into a large corporation. Despite facing discrimination from male superiors and unequal negotiations due to her gender, she has been able to grow her business, which is sufficient evidence of her abilities, especially for someone like myself who isn't very knowledgeable about business. Above all, she is an honest individual who shows regard and respect for even mid-career hires like me. She has good relations with her business partners and, of course, is popular with her staff. Being employed by someone like her makes me feel fortunate. I rubbed my elbow, which was still tight from a previous injury, and got ready for another day of cautious driving. "Good morning." I smiled as I said, "Looking forward to working with you today," to Miss Harrington. It was returned by her as usual. "Good morning. I appreciate you arriving so early. Please drive carefully as always and allow us plenty of time as I have a crucial business meeting today." I made sure she was sitting comfortably before softly shutting the door of the black luxury automobile. She opened her laptop and got to work as soon as I sat down in the driver's seat and looked in the rearview mirror. In addition to making sure she was safe, I also made sure there was as little noise and vibration as possible so she could concentrate on her task. On occasion, she struck up a conversation with me, and I made sure to keep it light and interesting. That was part of my work too. Although we were on schedule, if we kept up our current pace, we might arrive earlier than expected, which would be inconvenient for our hosts. I chose to visit a local convenience store because Miss Harrington also said that she wanted a drink. While I went inside to get her customary black coffee, I requested her to wait in the car. However, as I returned with the coffee, I was met with an alarming sight. A group of 5 rough-looking men had surrounded the black luxury car where Miss Harrington was seated. "Excuse me, is something the matter?" I called out. One of the men, his voice hoarse from years of drinking, responded in a threatening tone. "That's a pretty fancy car. Is it yours? You must have a lot of money." He stepped in close, invading my personal space as his lackeys chuckled, egging him on. "Justin, don't just go swinging right away." So his name was Justin. I kept my voice calm as I addressed him. "This isn't my car. I'm just a company driver. We're on our way to a business meeting, so if you'll excuse us." I had hoped to settle things peacefully, but of course, that wasn't going to happen. "Hold it," Justin growled, grabbing my arm with a forceful yank. He pulled me toward him, causing my paper cup of coffee to spill. As I wiped my arm with a handkerchief, I sighed internally, realizing this was going to be a hassle. If this dragged on any longer, it would only cause trouble for Miss Harrington. I raised my voice slightly, locking eyes with Justin as I spoke. "I don't have time to deal with you. Move out of the way, or this is going to turn into a real problem for you." For a brief moment, the thug stiffened at the change in my demeanor. However, as Justin regained his composure, he suddenly started laughing. His lackeys, now feeling more at ease, clutched their stomachs and let out crude, mocking laughter, joining him in ridiculing us. "A problem? Huh. And what exactly do you think is going to happen? Why don't you enlighten us? I'd say we're the ones who specialize in trouble." With that, Justin grabbed me by the collar. I didn't want this to escalate further, but considering our schedule, it would be best to handle this quickly. I couldn't allow Miss Harrington's company to suffer any losses because of these lowlives. However, if I were the one to make the first move, it could reflect poorly on the company since I was still on duty. As I was weighing my options and steeling myself for action, the rear passenger door suddenly opened, and Miss Harrington stepped out. "Enough. If you don't let go of him right now, I'll call the police." "You're really going to call the cops? You do know who you're messing with, right? You think you can just call the police on the mafia and walk away unscathed?" The rear windows of the car were tinted with a special film, making it difficult to see if anyone was inside. Justin and his mafia members had assumed the car was empty, so they were visibly startled when Miss Harrington emerged. The moment she mentioned the police, Justin quickly withdrew his hand from my collar. From his reaction, it was clear that they were indeed a local mafia involved in shady dealings. Getting tangled up with guys like them was the last thing we needed. I straightened my collar, nodded respectfully to Miss Harrington, and gestured for her to return to the car. As I walked back to the driver's seat, I glanced sideways at Justin before settling in and gripping the steering wheel for a moment. I worried that he might do something reckless, like jumping onto the hood of the car, but he merely stood there, staring at me and the vehicle. Seeing that he wasn't making any further moves, I decided it was safe enough to drive away and head to our destination. On the way, I apologized to Miss Harrington for the trouble and for failing to bring her the coffee I had intended. I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. If it weren't for your quick thinking, things could have gotten messy. Also, I spilled the coffee, so if you don't mind, I'd like to stop by another convenience store to get you a new one. I had wiped the cup clean with a handkerchief, but there was no way I could offer her something that had been spilled. As I glanced at the GPS to locate the nearest store, Miss Harrington picked up the coffee I had placed in the drink holder and spoke in a bright voice. "This coffee is just fine. Thank you. And honestly, I was really impressed by how you stood your ground against those big guys without flinching. Seeing you like that gave me the courage to step out of the car and say what I did." Truth is, I was shaking inside. Miss Harrington was kind and had a strong sense of justice. There was no way she could have just sat back and watched. But the fact that I had put her in a dangerous situation made me feel deep regret. Even though it was an unexpected encounter, there would always be ill-mannered people and troublemakers, no matter the location. And as her driver, it was my job to protect her from such threats. From now on, I resolved to be more vigilant, not just with my driving, but with the people around us as well. After safely dropping Miss Harrington off at her destination, I stopped by a nearby gas station to refuel. Today's meeting was more a preliminary discussion, and I had been told that reviewing the business progress documents wouldn't take more than an hour. To ensure flexibility in case of schedule changes, I remained close by, ready to return to the meeting location when needed. However, as I approached the company's entrance, I was once again met with an unsettling sight. The same mafia thugs from the convenience store were lingering outside the company building. I quickly parked the car and made my way toward the entrance. Justin and his men had already noticed my presence, standing with their arms crossed, glaring in my direction. "Well, I never expected to see you again so soon. Were you following us?" I had kept an eye on the rear view and side mirrors, but I hadn't noticed them tailing us. Some of them were even sitting on bicycles, which made me assume they were traveling by bike or on foot. But now, I suspected they might have just taken someone else's bicycles. Justin smirked ominously and replied, "Come on, you can't blame a guy for being curious. Seeing a fancy car like that, I just had to know where it was headed. And what do you know? It turns out you're making deals with a company big enough that even we've heard of it. I don't know much about your business, but if you're working with a place like this, you must be rolling in cash." With that, Justin stepped closer, pulling a wallet from his pocket. "Listen, I'm a little short on cash right now. How about a little donation? It'd be in your best interest, you know, unless you'd rather find out what happens when people don't cooperate." It seemed that Justin was trying to extort money from me, but there was no way I was going to give even a single cent to these scumbags. Even though I felt that way, this was still the premises of a business partner's company. If I caused trouble here, it would undoubtedly leave a bad impression on Miss Harrington. Worse yet, the company might decide not to do business with us if they saw us as the type to employ troublemakers. If I wanted to handle this smoothly, the best course of action would be to call the police, just as Miss Harrington had done earlier. I reached into my chest pocket to pull out my phone, but quickly realized I had made a mistake. I always kept my phone in my jacket's chest pocket when I went outside, but in my haste to get out of the car, I had left it behind. Noticing my reaction, Justin smirked. "Did you forget your phone in the car? Looks like our righteous hero, who saves the weak, won't even be able to call the police." With that, Justin and his group took another step closer, surrounding me. I let out a deep breath and asked them, "Excuse me, but do you have jobs?" Doing things like this will only lead to serious trouble later on. When I asked about their professions, Justin and his group exchanged glances and burst out laughing. "Jobs. Let me educate you. This is our job. We take money from people who look like they have it and use it to fund our drinking, eating, and setting up our own organization." Justin continued rambling about himself and his group. Apparently, their previous organization had been dismantled, so now they were trying to start a new one. Recently, this area had been seeing an increase in trouble, and Justin openly admitted that they were the ones extorting people for money. For someone to spill this much information so easily, they must have been low-ranking members in their former group with no sense of risk management. From our conversation so far, the only thing I had confirmed was that reasoning with them was pointless. I decided to suggest a change of location to avoid escalating the situation here. "How about we go somewhere else where we can talk more calmly?" If someone sees us and calls the police, it wouldn't be good for you either, right? It's not a bad deal for you. Justin hesitated for a moment, but then slowly shook his head. You're just trying to find a chance to run, aren't you? I'm not falling for that. They had the advantage in numbers, surrounding me from all sides. And yet, was there actually a chance they might let me escape in this situation? If that were the case, their skills must have been embarrassingly low. I sighed in exasperation at Justin and his group while quickly thinking of my next move. In the end, the situation remained unresolved, and before long, Miss Harrington returned. You guys, what are you doing here? Seeing Miss Harrington, Justin smirked and asked, And who might you be? If you tell me, I'll back off for today. Miss Harrington had her phone pressed against her ear, likely about to call me. Justin must have noticed her phone and realized that she could call the police at any moment. Not wanting to take that risk, he decided to propose a retreat. Miss Harrington pulled out her business card and handed it to Justin, saying, You'll just keep following us to our company anyway, won't you? Then let me save you the trouble. I run an 8 company. Does that satisfy you? Justin took the business card and stared at it intently. After a moment, he seemed satisfied and said to both of us, I'll let you off the hook for today. But if we cross paths again, you'd better be ready. With those parting words, Justin walked away, still eyeing Miss Harrington's business card. For the next few weeks, Justin and his group didn't show up at our company, and I started to relax. But just when I thought the danger had passed, they suddenly reappeared before us. It happened one evening after work when I was driving Miss Harrington home. Lately, work had been busy, and she had been staying late. To show her appreciation, she had made a reservation at a high-end restaurant. After parking in a downtown pay parking lot, we were heading toward the restaurant when Justin and his group stepped out of a car that had parked behind us. Noticing them, Miss Harrington whispered to me, Hey, isn't that? Yes, they're not the type to listen to reason, so let's just ignore them. The odds of running into them here by chance were low. It was more likely they had followed us, but they were using a different car this time, so we hadn't noticed. As Justin and his group approached us, they acted surprised, as if this was just a coincidence. I never expected to run into you here. How's business going? His pathetic attempt at acting irritated me even more. But not wanting to get involved, Miss Harrington and I ignored him and kept walking. Apparently, Justin didn't like being ignored. His face turned red, and he ran ahead to block our path. Hey, don't ignore me. Looks like you need a little lesson in respect. His pride had clearly taken a serious hit. He grabbed my arm with a rough grip, his voice louder and more aggressive than before. Now that he had physically grabbed me, ignoring him was no longer an option. With no choice, I stopped walking. Justin leaned in menacingly and said, I did a little research on your company. Seems like you're making a lot of money. You know what I'm getting at, don't you? We used to be part of one of the biggest organizations in this area. Regaining his composure, Justin flashed his usual smug, ugly grin. Then he started bragging about the Mafia group he had once been a part of. The name of the organization rang a bell. I had heard of it somewhere before. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't recall where. As I searched my memories, Justin seemed to mistake my silence for fear. His arrogance grew, and he added, Bring me $10 million and disappear. Or do you want a first-hand experience of how terrifying the underworld can be? At his words, his lackeys closed in, surrounding Miss Harrington and me. This must have been their usual tactic, ganging up on people and extorting money. I could feel Miss Harrington trembling beside me. Not only were they pathetic for making money this way, but they were also cowards for terrifying a woman. These guys needed to be put in their place and sent somewhere they could be properly rehabilitated. Justin must have realized I wasn't going to comply. Rolling his shoulders, he muttered to his group, Let's take him down all at once. As they closed in, I cracked my neck and stepped forward. It didn't take long. They probably thought they were tough, but their fighting skills were no better than schoolyard bullies. I dodged their wide, clumsy punches and struck their vital points, mainly their solar plexuses. One by one, 4 of them went down, leaving only Justin standing. "Hey, what the hell are you guys doing? Get up and fight." Despite his tough words, his knees were shaking. As I stepped toward him, he instinctively backed away. I cracked my knuckles and said, "You were talking big about teaching me a lesson. How about showing me what you've got?" Justin was completely terrified. He turned to run, but, in his panic, tripped over his own feet and fell hard. Scrambling to stand, he suddenly yelled at the top of his lungs, "Samuel. It's you, right? Help me. Some bastard is messing up our turf." Hearing that name, I instinctively widened my eyes. Samuel looked at me, recognition flashing across his face. Then, with a familiar warmth in his voice, he called my name. "Henry, it's been a long time." I was wondering what all the commotion was about. "Wait, has this guy been bothering you?" "It's been quite a mess, yeah. But more importantly, Samuel, how have you been?" As Samuel and I exchanged a friendly embrace, Justin gaped in disbelief. "What the hell is going on? Samuel, you know this old man?" Samuel shot him a sharp look, his presence instantly silencing him. "Henry is my mentor. You don't get to act like a big shot in front of him." As Justin and the others stared in confusion, Samuel began to explain how we knew each other. Before working as Miss Harrington's driver, I had been a rehabilitation officer in prison. That was where I met Samuel. Back then, he had been a high-ranking mafia member who had been sentenced to prison. He had been so unruly that other staff members struggled to handle him. But I had taken it upon myself to teach him discipline, etiquette, and how to function in society. Most of the time, I had been strict with him, but there were moments when I listened to his concerns and helped him work through his anxieties about life after prison. Over time, we developed a strong bond of trust. Eventually, he completed his sentence and successfully reintegrated into society. For a while after his release, Samuel had kept in touch with me, but after I left my job at the prison, we lost contact. When I first left my job, I had completely lost confidence in myself and didn't feel like keeping in touch with anyone. The real reason I quit was because of an injury to my elbow. As a rehabilitation officer, I had always been strict but compassionate toward inmates. However, sometimes my intentions weren't understood, and I ended up making enemies. One such inmate who resented me attacked me from behind, injuring my elbow. It didn't affect my daily life much, but the fact that I had let my guard down, and more importantly, failed to build trust with that inmate, left a scar on my heart. Feeling unfit to continue in that line of work, I decided to quit. By chance, I was introduced to the job of being Miss Harrington's driver, which led me to where I am today. I had thought Justin's mention of his organization sounded familiar, but seeing Samuel triggered my memory. It was the same organization Samuel had once been a senior member of. In other words, Justin and his group were once under Samuel's leadership. That organization had since been dismantled, but Justin was now trying to build a new one. When I pointed this out, Samuel's expression hardened, and he spoke in a stern voice. "You're still chasing after that kind of life. It's time to get out of this world. Everyone leaves this life eventually, but when you look back in your final moments, make sure you've lived in a way you can be proud of. Otherwise, what was the point of being born?" Samuel's words seemed to strike a chord with Justin, but at the same time, I could see his inner turmoil. He had come this far. Turning back now wouldn't be easy. "But no, we're going to make this work this time. We won't get caught by the cops. Samuel, you should join us and start over together." It seems Samuel's message didn't fully get through to them, but if they refused to listen, there was nothing more we could do. I looked at Justin and spoke in a calm tone. In that case, you'll just have to enter a facility and go through rehabilitation. Don't worry. People can change. Just like Samuel, you too can return to society as a respectable person. The mafia members who had been writhing in pain slowly got back on their feet, gathering around Justin. They had heard everything and were now waiting to see how he would respond. Justin turned to them and ordered, "All of you, go at him again. Take him down this time." Still not giving up, huh? I allowed aside and exchanged a glance with Samuel. This counts as self-defense, right? We have to protect Henry, after all. With Samuel now on my side, the fight ended in mere minutes. The two of us quickly took down the mafia members again and then closed in on Justin. Behind him, the flashing red lights of police sirens approached. Miss Harrington muttered, "Finally, they're here." It seemed she had called the police. Damn it. I'm not getting arrested here. You guys, don't say a word to the cops. As Justin tried to escape, I grabbed him and locked his joints in place. Tears welled up in his eyes as he asked me, "Am I going to prison?" "Who knows? You'll be sent to a detention center first, and depending on the investigation, you might end up in prison. It's a great place for people like you." As we spoke, the officers got out of their patrol cars and rushed toward us. After explaining the situation and handing Justin and his group over, we parted ways with Samuel after a brief chat. It was already quite late, but Miss Harrington and I resumed our walk to the restaurant. "I had no idea you had such a background. I've always thought you were reliable, but now I understand. It's because you've overcome so much in your life." As she spoke, her hand brushed lightly against my fingertips. That night, we enjoyed a wonderful meal together. Later, I received a call from a police officer thanking me. Apparently, Justin's crimes were surfacing one after another. He had confessed to embezzlement, fraud, and extortion, meaning he would likely receive a significant prison sentence. For now, he was in a detention center, but even there, he was already complaining and showing signs of weakness. Given the situation, it was almost certain that he would be sent to prison once his charges were confirmed. There, he would face strict guidance, but prison staff genuinely wanted inmates to change for the better. Hopefully, he would come to terms with his crimes and work toward rehabilitation. As for me, I continued working as Miss Harrington's driver. But one thing had changed. After that night, we started dating, and eventually, we got married. Today, we had invited Samuel to our home to help with our marriage registration. It's an honor to be your witness. Henry, are you sure you want someone like me for this? Samuel looked uncharacteristically bashful, but Miss Harrington and I both nodded firmly. From now on, I wouldn't just be her driver. I would be the man who supports her in both work and life. I wanted to be there for her more than ever, to stand by her side as she devoted herself to her career. As I thought about that, I watched Samuel's pen glide across the paper, signing as a witness to our marriage. High school graduate, hello. You're still alive? You might have died somewhere, I thought. I apologize for disappointing you. I'm still alive. I notice you haven't changed either. Mike became agitated and retorted, "A high school graduate like you has no right to laugh at me," as I laughed. "You are aware that I am a distinguished employee at Maverick Bank." "Oh, really? That is quite remarkable." Mike had a proud look on his face and raised his chin a little. "A high school graduate loser like you is very different from me. Are you even a Maverick Bank customer?" "Yeah, I do." "Most likely, it's just peanuts. For us staff, you are simply a nuisance. Get rid of your account now. You and other recent high school graduates will always be impoverished." Mike believed that having a high school diploma equated to being impoverished. Is that correct? I could, however, close my account for you if you persist. Are you certain of that? I am, of course. Maverick Bank doesn't give a damn whether you close your account or not. Mike said that with a hearty laugh. When I checked my phone after the meeting the following day, I saw multiple missed calls from an unidentified number. Once more, the same number was phoning. "Hey, Chris, what's going on?" Chris Miller is my name. I am still unmarried at 47 years old. I haven't even considered dating because I've been so preoccupied with my job. My early hardships are the reason I've been so focused on my career. My mother was a stay-at-home mom when I was a child since my father worked at a bank and made a good living. I led a comfortable life with my sister. Our parents would immediately take us to a restaurant if we wanted to eat barbecue and would enroll us in classes if we wanted to take them. However, my father passed away in an accident just after I completed my high school and college exams. The event was abrupt and startling. I don't recall much from that period, but I'm sure I was in a stupor, and my mother was devastated. After that, our entire way of life altered. Despite the fact that my father had given us some money, my mother was struggling to support her 2 children. I enrolled in a prominent college with my mother's strong encouragement. However, I made the decision to forego college and begin working after witnessing my mother work nonstop without even taking breaks for sleep. My mother sobbed uncontrollably when I told her about my choice. Why does it have to be this way? But in retrospect, I think I made the right choice. I became the family's primary provider and devoted all of my energy to studying management. Under the leadership of the company's highly talented president, I gathered a variety of experiences before launching my own business in my mid-20s. As a result, I was able to ease my mother's burden and send my sister to college. From the outside, it might look like I sacrificed myself, but I don't see it that way. I got to experience the world a little earlier than my peers and started my business a little earlier too. I'm confident in the life I've built. One busy day, I got a call from my mother back home. She said I'd received an invitation to a middle school reunion. The organizer from my middle school must be a really diligent guy. Starting with our 21st birthday, they've been organizing reunions every 10 years. But I've never attended even one. I couldn't even be bothered to send a reply card and asked my mom to leave it alone. After that, we chatted briefly before ending the call. "Don't you want to see your old friends?" my mother asked. But I don't have any good memories from my middle school days. The only person I could call a friend from that time is Matt. He's been my buddy since we were kids, playing together since kindergarten. I still keep in touch with Matt, and we sometimes go out for drinks together, but there's no one else I really want to see. And there are more people from middle school that I'd rather avoid. Since I attended a public middle school, we were joined by students from other elementary schools when we moved up. Among them was a student who stood out more than anyone else, a boy named Mike. He came from a different elementary school than I did. On the first day, he had 3 classmates following him like his lackeys, and he started making a big speech while sitting on top of his desk. "My name is Mike Taylor. I'm the heir to the famous Taylor family. From today on, my word is law. Got it. Anyone who doesn't listen to me will regret it." To me, Matt, and the other kids from my elementary school, we just thought, what's this guy talking about? But it turned out he was really a monster. The Taylor family was indeed well known locally. They were historically the landowners in the area, owning large tracts of land and running various businesses, amassing a huge fortune. They also had significant influence in local politics. Maybe it was because of this background, but Mike always craved attention and had to be the center of everything. If anyone stood out more than him or dared to challenge him, he'd boast, "I'll tell my dad, and he'll make sure your parents can't work anymore." And he meant it. There was even a classmate whose father lost his job and had to move out of state after defying Mike. If Mike's father couldn't directly affect someone's job, Mike would resort to nasty harassment. To avoid provoking him, Matt and I took a neutral stance, neither agreeing nor disagreeing with him. But one day Matt, unable to stand it any longer, spoke up. He caught Mike trying to drag an unwilling female classmate away after school. "Hey, Mike, cut it out. She doesn't want to go with you." "Huh? Who do you think you are? You've got some nerve trying to tell me what to do." Mike's attention shifted to Matt, and his grip on the girl loosened, allowing her to escape. "Oh man, she got away. What are you going to do about it?" "Nothing, really." "What? You little punk." Knowing Matt's strong sense of justice, I had a feeling something like this would happen eventually. But watching it unfold, I was anxious. In a TV drama, this might be where a fight breaks out. But Mike, while smart, wasn't physically strong. "You'll pay for this. Just wait and see." Unable to win in a fight, Mike left with his lackey and towel. But the real trouble started the next day. Mike began a campaign of harassment against Matt. His indoor shoes were hidden, his gym clothes disappeared, and his textbooks were defaced. It was obviously Mike's doing, but there was no solid proof. At first, Matt was clearly rattled. But once he was sure it was Mike, he just shrugged it off like it was nothing new. This seemed to bore Mike, so he ordered the entire class to ignore Matt. By that time, everyone in the class had realized that crossing Mike would only lead to trouble, so they obediently followed his orders. But I thought it was ridiculous and continued to interact with Matt as usual. This didn't sit well with Mike, and he turned his attention to me next. Just like with Matt, my indoor shoes went missing, my gym clothes disappeared, and my textbooks were defaced. "Sorry, I didn't mean to drag you into this. Don't worry about it. I don't like Mike either." Of course, things got so out of hand that Matt and I eventually talked to our homeroom teacher about it. The teacher tried to investigate Mike's harassment, but at the time, Mike's father was the president of the PTA, and the investigation was quietly dropped. In the end, their petty harassment continued until we graduated from middle school. After that, Mike was accepted into the same prestigious high school I went to. I couldn't believe I'd have to attend the same school as him again. But in high school, being the son of a local big shot didn't carry the same weight as it did in middle school, and his influence dwindled. The fact that his lackey went to other high schools probably played a big part in that. Still, whenever he saw me, he tried to pick a fight. "Oh, Chris, is that you? So you made it into this high school too. Not bad for someone like you. Want me to be your friend?" "Huh. No thanks." "What did you say?" "I'm offering to be your friend, and you have the nerve to turn me down. You're just as annoying as ever." At the time, I didn't have the luxury to deal with Mike's antics. After school, I'd go straight to my part-time job to help support my family. However, about 6 months later, when my mother fell ill, I decided to forego college and start working instead. In a way, I thought I had escaped from Mike as well. But I was wrong. Mike's persistence didn't change even as we grew older. Around 30 years have passed since then, and now I'm 47 years old. Even though I received an invitation to the reunion, I didn't think it had anything to do with me. But after my mother's recent call, I also got a message from Matt about the reunion. "Hey Chris, long time no see. Did you get the reunion invite?" "Oh, Matt. Yeah, it's been a while. I heard from my mom that it arrived at home. Mr. Thompson is supposed to attend this time too. You're going, right?" Mr. Thompson was our homeroom teacher in the 3rd year of middle school. This year, Mr. Thompson is turning 70, so the reunion was also organized as a celebration of his milestone birthday. Mr. Thompson was the one who questioned the school's policy of avoiding conflict and did his best to protect Matt and me from Mike and his gang. Although he couldn't beat the larger institution of the school, he was a teacher who supported and encouraged us. He was also there for me when I was devastated by my father's death. Having Mr. Thompson in my life gave me the strength to work hard and push forward. However, I hadn't seen him since we graduated from middle school. I don't want to see Mike and the others, but I do want to thank Mr. Thompson. I wasn't planning to go, but if that's the case, Maybe I'll drop by at the beginning. Since Matt was going too, I decided to attend the reunion to offer my congratulations and thanks to our teacher. On the day of the reunion, there was an unusually large turnout, as it also doubled as a celebration for our homeroom teacher's milestone. The event was held at the banquet hall of the only hotel in town, right by the station. I met up with Matt at the station, and we walked to the hotel together. It had been a year since I last saw Matt, partly because I'd been busy with work. After checking in, we entered the banquet hall, and the first thing that caught my eye was Mike, making a big scene as usual. Has Mike always been like that? Even at this age? Yeah, he hasn't changed at all. He works at Maverick Bank now, but he's known for being rude to customers. Matt still lived with his family after getting married, so he was well informed of the local situation. So he's at Maverick Bank, huh? As we were chatting, Mike noticed us. Oh, look who's here. I haven't seen Chris since he graduated from high school. Mike made sure to say it loudly on purpose. Some things never change. He and his old middle school cronies started walking toward us, grinning. Hey, high school grad. Still alive? Huh. I thought you might have dropped dead somewhere. Mike shouted that out loudly, and his lackeys burst into obnoxious laughter. Yeah, sorry to disappoint. I'm doing fine. You haven't changed either. I sneered, and Mike, clearly annoyed, shot back. A high school grad like you has no right to laugh at me. I'm an esteemed employee at Maverick Bank, you know. Oh, really? That's impressive. Mike lifted his chin slightly, wearing a proud expression. I'm on a whole different level from a high school grad loser like you. Do you even have an account at Maverick Bank? Yeah, I do. It's probably just peanuts anyway. All it does is waste our time. Close your account already. High school grads like you will always be poor. To Mike, it seems that being a high school grad automatically meant being poor. Is that so? Well, if you insist, I could close my account for you. Are you sure about that? Of course I am. Whether you close your account or not, Maverick Bank couldn't care less. Mike laughed heartily as he said that, but the other alumni were watching him from a distance. It was just like in middle school. Fed up with the scene, I greeted Mr. Thompson and left the reunion. As I waited for the elevator to take me down to the hotel lobby, I heard his voice from behind me. It was Mike. Oh, look who it is, Chris. Heading home already. Isn't it a bit early? Oh, right. I guess a high school graduate can't keep up with the conversation. Not again. I was utterly exhausted by this point. Mike had apparently been in the restroom and was now making a big scene, holding the banquet hall door open and shouting. I pretended not to notice him, but I knew all too well that he wasn't the type to let something like that slide. Ignoring me, Chris? You couldn't go to college because your family was too poor, right? Mike said this as loudly as he could. I didn't fail to go to college. I chose not to. That's just a way of spinning it. Either way, you're still a loser. A high school god like you must not have much of a life. Serves you right. I could hear people talking inside the hall. Chris was really smart, wasn't he? It's a shame he only graduated from high school. I didn't know he was just a high school grad. Mike flashed a sneering grin at me, and after one last loud laugh, he went back into the hall, seemingly satisfied. The next day, after a meeting, I checked my phone and saw several missed calls from an unknown number. Thinking it might be a wrong number, I was about to ignore it when the same number called again. As soon as I answered, I recognized the voice immediately. It was the last voice I ever wanted to hear. It was Mike. I had no idea how he got my number, but he was practically shouting on the other end of the line. Hey, Chris, what's going on? I just saw the newspaper. Are you really the president of Supreme Ventures Group? Mike was more excited than I'd ever heard him. Yeah, that's right. So what? You've got to be kidding me. How did someone like you get to be so important? Mike was clearly shaken. Are you really the president of Supreme Ventures Group? Since when? What's the deal? Apparently, the newspaper article featured my name and photo as the president of Supreme Ventures Group. Mike, in disbelief, had called to confirm. Looks like Matt jumped the gun with that article. The truth is, Matt works as a journalist for an economic newspaper. After I left the reunion yesterday, I went out for drinks with Matt, and we talked about how Mike had told me to close my account. We were actually in the middle of a meeting about moving the group's corporate accounts, but Mike saw things differently. What kind of shady stuff did you do to get where you are? That's pretty rude. I just grew my company through hard work. No way. You're more successful than me. It's impossible for you to be more important than I am. Mike couldn't hide his irritation that someone he once looked down on had surpassed him. But that wasn't my concern. By the way, I'm heading over to close my account at Maverick Bank, just like you said. Make sure everything's ready. Yeah, go ahead and close it. Mike was so focused on the fact that I was now a president that he didn't seem to have fully read the article. But I didn't really care about that. When I arrived at the Maverick Bank branch at 10, the place was buzzing. Everyone must have seen the newspaper article this morning. The staff were whispering to each other like a game of telephone, and eventually one of them disappeared into a back room. I looked around the bank and spotted Mike, then walked over to him. He seemed completely out of touch with the mood around him. Oh, Chris, here to close out that pathetic little account of yours, huh? You were bragging about being a president, but it looks like you're not making any money. Guess you're not much after all. Yeah, I'm here to move the $230 million I've deposited at your bank to another one, just as you suggested. No complaints, right? After all, my tiny deposit was just causing you trouble, wasn't it? This should make your job a lot easier. You're lucky to have such a considerate classmate. What? $230 million, but your account only had a few $100. Oh, you must be talking about that old personal account I used for payroll when I first started working. Yeah, I guess I did leave that one untouched for a while. Sure, I used it for living expenses, so there's not much left. I'll close that one too. With that, I handed Mike a copy of this morning's financial newspaper. The funds from Supreme Ventures Group's corporate accounts will be fully transferred to Summit Bank, and the accounts at Maverick Bank will be closed. This is expected to result in significant losses for Maverick Bank, potentially leading to difficulties in maintaining operations, and could even result in a merger with Summit Bank. What the hell is this? Mike read aloud from the front page scoop of this morning's financial newspaper. Chris, stop lying. There's no way you have that kind of money. Your company is probably a small-time operation. Don't try to act all high and mighty. Even now, Mike refused to acknowledge me. Just then, the branch manager and the head of the bank walked out from the back, deeply apologizing. Mr. Miller, we are always grateful for your business. Could you please explain the article in this morning's financial newspaper? Mr. Miller, has our bank caused you any inconvenience? They bombarded me with questions. I decided to tell them the truth. Well, your employee here, Mike, advised me to close my account because it was just causing trouble. So, I've decided to follow his advice and close it. Both of them simultaneously glared at Mike. Mike, what have you done? No. I wasn't suggesting he close the corporate accounts, just his personal one. Mike tried desperately to explain what an employee advising a customer to close their account without any reason meant. What's going on here? Mike hung his head. Mr. Miller is one of our most valued clients, someone who has supported our bank. Mike, did you not know that? Huh. This bank should be fine with my dad's assets. It shouldn't matter if Chris's company pulls out. My dad's a big deal in this town. Apparently, you're unaware. Your father was indeed a great patron of our bank. However, he recently suffered significant losses in the FX market and is now burdened with debt. To cover those losses, he's had to liquidate quite a bit of his deposits, and I hear he's planning to sell some land soon. It seemed Mike was completely unaware. His eyes widened with shock. What? No way. It's true. Don't you read the financial news, Mike? Just the other day, there was a big article about the Taylor family being on the verge of bankruptcy. Turning back to the branch manager and the head of the bank, I said, "So, I'll be closing all of Supreme Ventures Group's corporate accounts. Please proceed with the necessary steps." Hearing this, both the branch manager and the head of the bank turned pale. "Mr. Miller, if you close your accounts now, our bank won't be able to survive. We sincerely apologize for the rudeness of our employee. Could you please reconsider?" "No. As you're aware, our group owns Summit Bank, and we've agreed to consolidate everything there moving forward. Until now, I've trusted you and kept our group's assets at Maverick Bank, but I can't continue to do business with a bank that employs someone like Mike. The decision to close the accounts is final." The branch manager and the head of the bank looked up to the sky in despair. Mike watched the scene with an embarrassed expression on his face. After a brief silence, the head of the bank spoke with determination. "Mr. Miller, we understand. We will prepare to close the corporate accounts and transfer all funds to Summit Bank. We will contact you as soon as the process is ready. Thank you. I appreciate it." With that, I left Maverick Bank. As I glanced back, I saw Mike being forced by the branch manager to apologize deeply, his expression bitter. Served him right. A few days later, I received a call from the branch manager that the account closure process was ready, and I returned to Maverick Bank. To my surprise, Mike was still working there. Is he getting special treatment because he's the son of a local big shot? And to top it off, Mike himself insisted on handling my account closure. The branch manager was also present, which made me wonder if there was some ulterior motive. My instincts were correct. As I was called into a private room and the account closure process began, Mike leaned in and whispered to me while the branch manager was away fetching the head of the bank. "Hey, Chris, cancel this account closure." "Huh? You're the one who told me to close it. I'm just following your orders." "I'm telling you to cancel it now. That was obviously a joke. You need to save my reputation." I was utterly infuriated. Even at this point, Mike was still trying to manipulate people. "If I can get you to cancel the closure, I won't face any consequences. Just help me out." "No, you arrogant jerk. You think you can get away with this?" Just as Mike was about to grab my collar, the head of the bank and the branch manager walked in. "Mike, what are you trying to do to Mr. Miller?" "I've had a bad feeling about this ever since you insisted on handling this closure yourself. So this was your plan all along." "No, that's not what I meant," Mike stammered. It turned out that Mike had requested to handle the closure personally, claiming he could persuade me to cancel it. The branch manager had given him a chance, but now it was clear what Mike's real intentions were. "That's enough. Mike, step aside. The branch manager and I will handle the rest of the process. You'll be informed about your disciplinary action later. In the meantime, you're suspended." But sir, my father has always supported this bank. You can't do this to me." "Yes, your father was a great supporter of this bank. But that was your father, not you. Your attitude and performance will be reviewed as well, so be prepared." The branch manager's tone was icy. Mike, who had always been given leniency as the son of a local big shot, was now facing the consequences due to his father's diminished influence and the significant loss he had caused the bank. "Mr. Miller, the account closure process is complete. The full $230 million has been transferred to Summit Bank. We sincerely appreciate your business and are deeply grateful for your trust in us. Should you ever wish to open an account with us again, we would be honored to serve you." The head of the bank, though clearly distressed, handled the situation with professionalism. I had always trusted him for his respectful approach, so it was disappointing to see things end this way. I later learned more about Mike's fate through Matt. When it became clear that Mike's reckless behavior had caused significant losses for the bank, his colleagues and subordinates unleashed their pent-up frustrations. It turned out that Mike had been using his father's name to intimidate them, just as he had done in middle school. Mike was seen as a capable employee by his superiors, but that reputation was built on stealing clients from his colleagues and subordinates. He had threatened them, saying, "If you snitch on me, I'll make sure you can't work at this bank anymore. Mike, I'm disappointed in you. Your demotion and pay cut are confirmed." What? Why am I being demoted? I'm meant to be in charge. Stop acting like a big shot. You don't have what it takes to lead others. Start by taking a good look at yourself. Despite the branch manager's words, they seemed to go in one ear and out the other. It might be too late for Mike to change his ways after living like this for so long. But his pride wouldn't let him accept the demotion. He resigned from Maverick Bank without thinking about the consequences. Around the same time, Mike's scandal came to light. He had been brazenly having an affair with the branch manager's wife. She was a former classmate of ours and also Mike's ex-girlfriend. They were quite similar in temperament, making them a fitting pair in some ways. Apparently, Mike and the branch manager's wife rekindled their relationship at a reunion when they were both 40. The branch manager, noticing his wife's strange behavior, hired a private investigator who confirmed the affair. When he found out that the other person was Mike, he was stunned. When the branch manager informed Mike of his demotion, he confronted Mike with the evidence and demanded compensation. As a result, it's said that Mike resigned from his job and attempted to flee. The branch manager divorced his wife and sent both his ex-wife and Mike a formal notice demanding compensation. Even if Mike tried to run away, everyone knew where his family lived. There was no escaping. At 30, Mike had an arranged marriage with a wealthy woman. But when she discovered his affair, she divorced him, demanded a large settlement, and left. As the Taylor family's influence waned, even the friends who had followed Mike since elementary school scattered like spiders, abandoning him. Mike turned to his father for help with hefty loan payments, but his father, having already lost most of his wealth, was in no position to offer any assistance. Realizing he couldn't rely on his father anymore, Mike tried to find another job, but his bad reputation had already spread far and wide, and no company was willing to hire him, no matter how many interviews he attended. With no other options, Mike took on massive debt to pay off the settlements, and now scrapes by working at a convenience store during the day and as a security guard at night. But with his personality, it was no surprise he couldn't hold down any job for long and kept bouncing from one to another. One day, Matt walked into a convenience store and spotted Mike behind the counter. He immediately recognized him and was taken aback, but he was in a hurry and decided to make his purchase there. However, Mike was completely sullen at the register, offering no courtesy or service. When Mike realized it was Matt, he made an outrageous demand. "Oh, it's Matt. That'll be an extra $10. Huh? Extra for what? A tip for me. That made no sense. Asking for a tip that much at a convenience store was unheard of. Matt thought it was a joke, but then Mike started scanning random items near the register, adding an imaginary $10 to the total. That'll be $25, tip included. Knock it off. You're causing trouble, sir. As they argued, the store manager came over. Matt protested to the manager. It was obvious that the items on the receipt didn't match what he had purchased, making Mike's wrongdoing clear as day. Shortly after, Mike was fired. He had no one to blame but himself. As for me, business was booming. Supreme Ventures Group continued to grow, and we posted a profit this fiscal year. The new banking venture was also getting on track. With the Taylor family and Supreme Ventures Group, two major clients closing their accounts in quick succession, Maverick Bank's credibility plummeted. Its momentum stalled, and it fell into a financial crisis. As a result, the head of Maverick Bank decided to proceed with a merger with Summit Bank. Ironically, the situation unfolded just as Matt's early article had predicted. However, thanks to my recommendation, the former head of Maverick Bank was appointed as the head of the newly formed Summit Maverick Bank. With his exceptional leadership and management skills, Summit Maverick Bank was aiming even higher. The branch manager and the rest of the staff, except for Mike, continued to work at the newly rebranded Summit Maverick Bank's Branch 10. I found myself recalling the words of Mr. Thompson, whom we had met again at the reunion. Mr. Thompson had arrived just before the reunion began, so Matt and I, not planning to stay long, went to congratulate him on his 70th birthday and thank him for his support during our middle school years. Right after the toast, at that moment, Mr. Thompson remembered both Matt and me very well. When we called his name, he greeted us with open arms. "Chris and Matt, how have you been?" That alone was touching, but then Mr. Thompson, hugging us both, said, "You've both grown into such fine men. I'm sorry I couldn't resolve things for you back then. It's something I regret in my teaching career. But seeing how strong and successful you've become, I'm truly grateful." We had come to thank him, but instead, he thanked us. Amazingly, Mr. Thompson continued to think about us even after we graduated, saving clippings of the interview I gave as president for a business magazine and the articles Matt had written. "Matt, I'm thinking about expanding overseas soon." "Oh." Finally, Matt pulled out a notepad, ready to jot down details. "Hey, no early articles this time. It's still just a concept." "Got it. But it's hard to. Is this?" We both laughed. We swore to live our lives without regret, just as Mr. Thompson had encouraged us to do. "You've made a grave error. You'll lose your job." He yelled at me, "Never return to this company," and walked out of the room. I guess I'm going to get fired. I've made a substantial contribution to the business without making any serious errors, but it appears I need to start looking for a new position. But 2 days later, my phone rings out of the blue. "I'm glad you picked up, David. Could you please return to the office immediately?" The scene I observed when I got to the office. David Smith is my name. My wife and I are a family of 3 with a vibrant 8-year-old boy. I handle food orders and dispatches at a subsidiary of a large food producer. Inventory control is difficult for both retail goods and restaurant supplies. Although it's a careful task, I've completed it without making any significant mistakes. There is one problematic employee, though. "Hey, David, you were supposed to finish this report by today, right?" My supervisor, Manager John, was the one who scolded me. John, my superior, is in his 40s and younger than me, but he always gives me haughty commands. John is the son of a department head at the main food manufacturing firm. In addition, he is incredibly bad at his work, yet constantly believes he is correct. Even though he was only made department head 2 weeks ago, he seems to despise me and keeps piling on more work. "Start working on this report as soon as you're done with that. Get moving." "Yes, sir. I understand." Be proactive before your supervisor needs to inform you. You truly have no idea. John left the room after tossing a pile of papers onto my desk. I heard my coworkers whispering as I began to collect the strewn documents. I couldn't help but listen because we were in the same room. John is always so hard on David. David does careful, flawless job. Why, I wonder. However, given his age, David appears to be out of it. No title yet. Perhaps he has no interest in moving up the business ladder. Yeah, with his attitude, it seems hard for him to advance. When John yells at him, he simply grins. I sighed as I heard my coworkers laughing. Say whatever you want, then. I'm just going about my work as I see fit. Thinking that, I continued working on the tasks assigned by John. However, one day, as I was working as usual, my colleague suddenly started panicking. She was sweating and repeatedly apologizing while on the phone. I wondered what was happening, and as she hung up, she came toward me. "David, what's this about?" She handed me a note. It was a complaint from a major client. "What's this about?" "We ordered 50 regular items for business use and 500 items for home use as samples, but only the 50 business items arrived. We were supposed to distribute the home items to customers at an event in 3 days. They were quite angry. That can't be right. I've never made such a mistake before, and I was sure I had checked everything this time." I couldn't understand why this was happening, and I started to panic. I handle orders for 2 types of products, those for business use and those for home use. The large packs for business and the smaller packs for home use have the same name, making them easy to confuse. It's a mistake-prone area, so I always paid extra attention, double-checking everything. But now a complaint has come in. I immediately switched gears and opened my computer to check the order form. The form showed an order for 50 items for business use. That's odd. I'm certain I ordered 500 items for home use too. I couldn't believe my eyes, and I felt a chill run through me. Then, the next moment, John's loud voice echoed throughout the room. "One mistake you've made, you useless. But I'm sure I ordered 500 items for home use." "Quiet. The fact is, you only ordered the items for business use. Instead of making excuses, do whatever it takes to get 500 items for home use." John pushed me back to my desk and stormed out of the room in anger. My colleagues looked unworriedly at the exchange between John and me, but none offered to help. Anyway, I had to somehow gather the items for home use. I immediately returned to my desk and started calling the branches. "Sorry for the sudden call, but if you have any spare items for home use, could you send them over, please? I'm begging you. Thank you so much. I'll definitely repay this favor." 241 items left. Only 3 days until the event. Our client was participating in. Could I possibly get 500 items in time? No time to doubt. Just do whatever I can. Now, I kept making calls, addressing the situation. "I'm terribly sorry. Yes, thank you very much." I kept asking them, checking for any available stock. Even if there was just one item, I drove out myself to pick it up. 71 items left. And then, the day before the event, I held the boxes filled with items tightly. "Thank you. Sincerely, thank you so much for this. I'm truly grateful." Finally, I had managed to gather the 500th item. Somehow, I had prepared the amount planned for the event. I immediately went to deliver them to the client, but the person in charge looked down at me with eyes full of anger. "What's going on? We've had a long relationship with your company, but we've never had such an experience. I'm sorry, but we can't trust you anymore. Our business relationship is over." The client took the products and slammed the door in my face. I slumped for a while, but then slowly made my way back to the office. I had done everything I could, but upon returning, there was John, arms crossed, looking furious, waiting for me. "You made an unbelievable mistake this time. Such repeated errors affect the company's reputation. You'll be fired. Leave now. Don't ever come back to this company," he yelled and left the room. I tried to get back to my desk, head hung low. So I'm getting fired. My mistake has caused trouble for the company. I've contributed to the company without major mistakes until now, but it seems I need to find a new job. It will be hard at my age and without having advanced much in my career. What should I tell my wife and son when I get home? Filled with anxiety, I packed up my belongings after the end of the workday. I apologized to my colleagues and left. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience I've caused. Thanks for your hard work. I'll be leaving now," I said with a heavy heart. With apologies, I left the office using the remaining paid leave. That's all I have to do at the company. These last 3 days have been exhausting. I rotated my neck and shoulders, hearing them crack. How should I explain this to my wife and son? Will they be disappointed or give up on me as a failure? No. They'll greet me with a smile as usual. Considering my family's nature, they probably won't blame me, but that thought somehow felt even harder to bear. Hesitantly, I walked towards home, which was just around the corner. I'm home. Welcome back, Dad. You're late. Oh, you look pale. Did something happen? As I held my son, who energetically jumped at me, I just nodded with a smile to my wife's question. Yeah, a little bit. I'll talk about it later. All right, let's have dinner once you're changed. I slowly headed to my room. My wife and son, true to my fears, welcomed me with smiles. That made it even harder to figure out what to say. Anyway, I'll talk after dinner. I braced myself and returned to the living room where my wife and son were waiting. Let's eat. Let's eat. So, what happened? You seem down, Dad. Did something happen? Their concerned voices made my heart pound, but I couldn't keep it hidden forever. Taking a deep breath, I began to speak. I'm sorry, both of you. It looks like I'll be fired from my job. Hearing my words, my wife's eyes widened in shock, speechless. But my son was the one who reacted loudly. Awesome. Then, Dad, you don't have to go to work, right? Yes, I'll be home for a while. Yeah, let's go to the amusement park then. I've been wanting to go. My son looked at me with a big grin. His unexpected reaction left me just staring back at him. Then, my wife began to laugh softly. That's a great idea. You've been so busy lately, it'll be good for you to relax. I'm happy you'll be at home with us. Their responses left me speechless, but at the same time, I felt incredibly relieved. Really? They don't blame me for being fired? I can stay at home for a while. I realized we hadn't gone on a trip since my son grew up. I had left all the childcare and housework to my wife, so maybe this time together was a good thing. I thought to myself and smiled at them. That's right, let's go to the amusement park this weekend when school's out. Yeah, you promised, Dad. I'm looking forward to it. The living room was filled with my family's happy voices. What a warm dinner table it was. I felt lucky to have such happy moments. Relieved a little, I continued my meal. But the next morning, after taking paid leave, my phone suddenly rang. It was a colleague from the company. What could it be? Did I make another mistake? Feeling a bit anxious, I answered the phone. Hello, this is David. Thank goodness, David, you're there. I'm sorry to bother you during your vacation, but can you come to the office right away? Does this mean there's a problem? I'm sorry. I can't discuss it over the phone, but please come back as soon as you can. Understood. I'll be there shortly. Urged by my colleague's rushed voice, I quickly got ready. My wife looked at me curiously. What's up? Did the office call? Yeah, they called me in. I'll go and check. I'd arrived at the office 40 minutes after the call, heading to my department. A colleague hurried over to me. David, thank goodness you're here. Please come with me quickly. Following my colleague as he hurriedly ran, I tilted my head in confusion. Why such a rush? What could have happened? Then, as we ran, my colleague began to explain the situation to me. According to him, the next morning after I was told I was fired, the CEO of the company, with a changed complexion, came to our department, visibly angry. Why is he not here? Explain this to me. Are you referring to David? We don't need someone like him. John, who was there, tried to calm the CEO, but the CEO became even angrier. What are you saying? Just call David back here. Then they contacted me. I was puzzled by my colleague's story, but I was already told I was fired. My colleague looked as confused as I was. When we arrived, the CEO and John were waiting. Oh, David, good to have you back. But I was told that you'll be fired. The CEO looked surprised but then relaxed and laughed heartily. There's no way we fire you. Without you, who would manage the contacts for this company? He showed me his computer screen, displaying the order page for our products. There, I noticed a section marked with a red warning sign. Wait, this isn't right. Since the day after I took leave, it seems no orders were placed. Well, of course you weren't here. Why wouldn't orders be placed if I'm not here? The CEO replied. Because that's a job only you can do. The CEO then handed me a note. John, can you place this order? Understood. John took the note and moved to the computer. But as he tried to enter the order, he stopped and looked puzzled. CEO, what does this say? I can't place the order unless it's in English. Hearing John's words, the CEO began to laugh heartily, slapping his belly. So, David, can you take the order from the memo John has? No way, the CEO exclaimed. If I couldn't do it, there's no way David can. John looked sullen again, reluctantly handing me the memo. As he pushed it into my hand, his glare seemed to say, there's no way you can do it. I took the memo, sat down at the computer, and checked the order details. Then, I began to enter the information as usual. This is a food product from Germany. I'm placing the order now. Ah, is that in English? It looks like a completely different language. Next up, a product from Poland. What's this product called? I can't read it. Despite John's interruptions, I kept entering and placing orders, one after another. After entering all the products listed in the memo, I looked at the CEO. If there are any more orders, I can do them right away. Isn't it about time for our regular order with France? Yes, it is. Hey, someone bring any order requests you have. David is back, so we can get them quickly. Hearing his words, several employees gathered around, bringing order requests. David, could you handle this, please? And this one, too. We're in a rush. As I busily entered the orders, I could hear John grumbling in the background. Unbelievable. How can that incompetent David manage to place orders? That's when I realized something John didn't know about me, my extensive knowledge of other languages. In fact, I studied various languages during my student days. Being able to read and write in these languages has been incredibly useful in dealing with these countries. After entering all the requested orders, I thoroughly checked the product names and quantities for any errors. All good, no mistakes. Sending now. I felt relieved after completing the orders, but then noticed something strange. What's this? This computer was dedicated to placing orders and displayed the order history, including the last update. After completing the order process, one had to enter their employee ID, so the name of the employee who last used it was also recorded. According to the record, the last update was on the day I was told I was fired, but the last updater was listed as John's. So that's how it was. What's up, David? As everything became clear, I stood up energetically. The ordering mistake the other day wasn't my error. Isn't that right, John? What? What are you talking about? Your mistake got you fired. John retorted, his face turning red. I've made my case. You specialize in placing orders, John, and you just said that these incomprehensible languages could only be read by you. You still won't admit it. Then let me show you the proof. I quickly printed the screen and showed the printed paper to everyone present. Look here, it says the last updater was John's. Well, that is, John muttered flustered, waving his hands. But everyone's eyes were focused on the paper I was holding. The CEO took the paper from me and stared intently at John's name. After a moment, he spoke in a grave tone. It seems you are the one who should be leaving this company, John. No, this must be some mistake. John stammered, his face turning pale as he tried to make excuses. But the CEO, with a stern look, declared to him, I will be reporting this matter to your father as well. Be prepared for the appropriate disciplinary action. The president stared intently at John before leaving the scene. John let out a short cry and then collapsed weakly to the floor. Meanwhile, I was surrounded by my colleagues, all of them speaking to me at once. David, we had no idea you had such a skill. Honestly, we thought you weren't competent at your job. We're truly sorry you didn't talk much and seemed a bit odd. Sorry about that. Oh, don't apologize. You guys haven't done anything wrong to me. Besides, it looks like I'll still be able to work at this company, so let's keep up the good work together. I replied lightly to my colleagues. Seeing their relieved faces made me feel relaxed and reassured. This way, I proved I hadn't made a mistake and safely returned home. When I told my wife and son that I would be returning to work, they were overjoyed. A few days later, while I was still on paid leave, my phone rang again. It was the CEO. Sorry to bother you during your time off. Actually, one of our clients called. They insisted I pass a message to you. It's okay. What's up? Well, after the mix-up with the order, the client contacted us wondering if it really was your mistake. They remembered how diligently you'd handled our dealings in the past and suspected there might have been a misunderstanding. Oh, I see. Recalling those times, it was heartwarming to know that the client had thought so highly of our long-term relationship. The CEO continued, I always thought it couldn't have been your mistake, but never imagined John would tamper with it. I'm really sorry about what happened. After a meeting with the high-ups, we decided to fire him. It's only fair after what he did. John's father was a senior executive at the parent company, but even that couldn't save him. According to the CEO, John was now job hunting at another company, but rumors of the tampering were making it difficult. After hanging up, I took a deep breath. I could get back to work as usual. With John gone, I was ready to work even harder. Seeing my renewed spirit, my wife said with a smile, Seems like good things are happening. The next day, we went to the amusement park as promised. My family enjoyed the park, watching our son's happy face. Dad, Mom, we can reserve priority tickets here. Really? That's convenient, I said. My son explained a system that allowed us to use attractions preferentially within a designated time. Watching my son, who had grown up so much without me realizing, a warm feeling filled my heart. We enjoyed the amusement park all day. Then, the day to return to work arrived. I go now, I said, leaving the house earlier than usual. The familiar commutes seemed to shine differently to me that day. When I arrived at the office, I brushed off my suit and walked in slowly. Good morning. Ah, David. Good morning. Sorry to ask right when you arrive, but can you handle this? A colleague handed me an order for Germany. Sure, leave it to me. And so, my routine at work resumed as before. The new department director laughed at me and said, You're no longer needed because I've coached a young, highly educated person. For 10 years, I have put forth a lot of effort in this organization. Is my lack of a high degree the reason I'm getting fired? I get it. In the middle of my disappointment, my business colleague said, I'll take him under my wing if he's getting fired. She then led me to a location where someone appeared. Long time no see, naughty boy. My name is Kenny. After graduating from high school, I worked for a corporation. I decided to graduate from high school because of a particular individual. Kenny is kind. Aki, what did you say? Yay, it's just not fun with Kenny around. I struggled in my club activities in high school, which made going to class difficult for a while. I also didn't have a university I wanted to go at the time because I didn't have any career goals, and I frequently clashed with my parents about it. You are our kid. You ought to strive to attend a prominent university. What's the point of going to a prestigious university? Just do as I say. Living that way made me tired of everything. I went to the school's rooftop to release some pent-up energy because I felt uncomfortable at home and at school. What? Who would that be, I wonder? Someone was there already. What? Kenny, the agitator. Mrs. Nancy Smith, the English teacher, was already present. After a brief moment of surprise at my appearance, she started laughing. Her arrival surprised me, but her smile calmed me down. You haven't submitted your career preferences, got into trouble in the club activities, and now you're on the off-limits rooftop. You're on the off-limits rooftop as well, aren't you? I'm allowed because I'm a teacher. Besides, I wanted to see the sky. The staff room feels suffocating. I retorted to the teacher, and that was her response. Then we had some light-hearted conversations, suggestions for the next lesson, stuff about club activities, talks that had nothing to do with me, and gradually I felt more at ease. By the way, what do you want to do in the future? At that question from her, I couldn't answer anything. What is my dream for the future? I'm struggling because I don't know. I think I'd be better in sales or something rather than teaching. Leaving me aside, Mrs. Smith started talking. Look, if you don't have something you want to do, why not just get a job or start a business? You don't seem like someone who'd work well under others. You'd be suited for entrepreneurship. What a reckless thing to say. Yet, it was enough to clear the cloudiness in my heart. My parents tell me to study and become a public officer, and my homeroom teacher says I'll end up a foolish adult if I don't go to university. But I could take Mrs. Smith's words to heart more than theirs. Right. I might quit teaching and start a business. Let's see who can earn more in the future. That was Mrs. Smith's suggestion. Even though I thought it was foolish, my heart felt the clearest it ever had. Starting a business, huh? Even after returning home, I kept pondering Mrs. Smith's words. It's not that I don't want to study. However, I can't think of a reason why I must continue studying. I felt more suited to having a rival and striving together, as Mrs. Smith suggested, rather than studying aimlessly. If I tell it as it is, my parents would surely oppose it. My parents won't understand me. Therefore, I didn't tell my parents, and instead wrote employment on the school's career preference survey. To be prepared for any probing from my homeroom teacher or parents, I decided to look for companies that hire high school graduates. Why not start a business? Mrs. Smith made it sound trivial, but I thought I should first experience society. My homeroom teacher reacted just as I expected upon seeing my survey. There's a limit to what companies will hire a high school graduate. But that's my preference. The homeroom teacher clearly looked down on me. Then they called my parents to the school. What are you thinking, you shameless fool? I can't believe you are this foolish. I thought you were a troublemaker, but I didn't realize you were so thoughtless. I was subjected to what could be taken as verbal abuse from my parents and my homeroom teacher. But out of defiance, I vowed to work and succeed just to prove them wrong. It's my life. I'll do what I want. In the end, I didn't back down and got a job right after graduating high school. Then, I moved out and started living on my own. After that, I never saw my parents again, nor did I feel the desire to. I felt kind of liberated. I didn't feel lonely at all. You really took that step. Maybe I should too. Mrs. Smith said that to me when I was graduating. After that, I worked desperately. Even though it was my choice, I felt somewhat inferior for only having a high school diploma. In an era where a university degree is the norm, being a high school graduate was something that attracted attention, for better or worse. Why didn't you go to university or vocational school? My colleague would ask me. In response, I always gave vague answers. People around me speculated he must come from a poor family that needed him to work immediately, and they sympathized with me based on their assumptions. I disliked being pitied or favored by those around me. If I could produce results at work, I believed that others would recognize me as a competent individual. With that thought, I decided to give my all. Before I knew it, 10 years had passed since I joined the company. Now hardly any employees looked at me with pity. Kenny, you're always working hard. I see you're really reliable. Thank you. From my early days, working hard and taking the initiative in tasks gained me support from my colleagues. My 10 years of diligent work were recognized not only within the company, but also by our business partners. It was right to trust Kenny. Working with you is reassuring. I received praise as well. Kenny is quick and thorough with his work. It's a pleasure to work with him. Especially Jessica, the sales manager from a partner company, praised me a lot. She seemed much more mature than me, but I couldn't quite believe the rumors that she was the same age as me. I'm honored to hear you say so much. Kenny, you're really hardworking. I'd like you to come work for our company. She shared my interest in Anna, which made us get along well, and we even went out for drinks privately. While drinking, we talked about our favorite things. I liked those moments. But it wasn't all good. Don't get too cocky, you high school grad loser. I would like to think that my 10 years had finally paid off, but there was one concerning person among the employees. It was the new director, James. The director was an academic who had his own value system. The more educated, the better. The less educated, the incompetent. From James' point of view, I was a piece of trash. Hey, useless one. He would call me that, never by my name. Go buy coffee for me. Even someone as useless as you can manage that. Moreover, James would order me to do menial tasks, not even acknowledging me. Even when others from different companies praised me, he would say, "Did you offer to sleep your way to the top? You must have it tough, being incompetent. You go to such lengths." In front of other employees, he hurled such terrible slander at me. I had pride in my 10 years of service. However, as he pointed out, I didn't have a higher education. James, please judge me based on my current performance. The fact that you're undereducated is the truth. If you want me to acknowledge you, at least go to university. Even when I expressed my thoughts, being talked down to about my educational background left me without a retort. As a result, I could only keep my frustration to myself, sighing in dismay. One day, Jessica came to our company for a business meeting. "Sorry, it seems I forgot some documents. I'll fetch them right away." "It's okay. No rush. Take your time." I thanked Jessica, who smiled and forgave me as I hurried back to my desk for the documents. As I was about to return to her, "I need to hurry." Whoa. In my head, I didn't notice James drinking coffee around the corner and accidentally bumped into him. I'm so sorry. I had to return to Jessica, so I quickly apologized and ran off. That bastard. I didn't realize until the end that James was glaring at me with anger. After the meeting, Jessica and I were chatting as we walked her to the entrance of the company. "Hey, incompetent." From behind, James called out to me. "James, what was your attitude earlier?" "I'm very sorry about earlier. I was in a hurry because of the meeting." I quickly sensed what he wanted to say and apologized to him. However, he seemed angry about how I acted when I bumped into him and couldn't contain his anger. I don't like it when someone thinks a mere sorry is enough after bumping into their boss. I don't need employees who can't respect their superiors. Meeting or not, it's wrong for someone with your low education to act so high and mighty. In front of Jessica, James was yelling at me. When I glanced at Jessica, she was frowning and looking at James. "You're fired. I've tolerated you until now, but I can't stand it anymore. Pack your things and get out." Wait a minute. I've been working here for a long time, and to be fired just because I bumped into you once. I objected to his abrupt dismissal, not caring how Jessica looked at me. But that only made him angrier. "Just because you bumped into me once? Are you mocking me? With your low education, that's why you're losing your job. I've already poached someone with higher education, so you're unnecessary." This can't be. We argued for a while, but he had the upper hand in terms of power. As I became increasingly disheartened, James smiled smugly. I've poached a young, highly educated person, so you're no longer needed. Hearing this again made me slump in defeat. Were my 10 years all for nothing? That's when. Excuse me for a moment. Jessica, who had been quietly listening to our conversation, interjected. At that, James looked puzzled. Please stay out of this. You're an outsider. So you're firing him because his attitude towards you wasn't good, even though he's been with this company for 10 years and has an excellent work record. Is that the kind of company this is? Ignoring James' words, Jessica pressed on. I could only watch in silence. You are the sales manager of another company, so please don't try to interfere with us like a big shot. Understood. If he's going to be fired, I will take him in. What did you just say? Surprised, I looked at Jessica. James looked even more shocked. Is it up to you to decide that then? Please pack your things quickly and come to our company. Ignoring the flustered James, she urged me on. Compelled by her, I headed to my desk to pack my belongings. Please consider all the business deals you were advancing as null. Once he joins us, everything will be resolved. I will inform your president of this, including what happened here. Hearing that the deals would be canceled and that the president would be informed, James turned pale. Wait. Hold on. All right, your firing is canceled. Ignoring him, Jessica firmly pushed me forward. After discussions, including with our president, it was decided that I would join Jessica's company. Pulled away from the one I had served for 10 years, James's actions led to the loss of significant business, and he faced tremendous repercussions from the executives. You could probably get a good settlement if you had evidence. That's all right, thank you. I said with a wry smile to Jessica's words. I had endured terrible treatment from him, but just being freed from it was enough for me. If Kenny joins our company, James is going to be in big trouble anyway. What do you mean by that? Don't worry about it. You'll find out soon enough. While I was packing, my colleagues approached me. They apologized for not being able to cover for me and encouraged me to do my best in the next company. I thanked them and changed jobs. Jessica, I would like to thank the president later. I told Jessica that I wanted to thank the president. In fact, right after being recruited, I had asked her, is it okay without the president's approval? It's fine, don't worry. Jessica reassured me in response to my question. I expressed my desire to meet the president. That's when the president has time, Jessica replied. She took care of all the paperwork and formalities. I really want to meet the president soon. All right, all right. She finally seemed willing to arrange the meeting. With a slightly absent-minded smile, Jessica led me to the president's office. There, the president was waiting. It's been a while, hasn't it, naughty boy? You've grown up quite a bit. The person greeted me with a grin, a voice and manner I felt I recognized. This is President Nancy Smith. Jessica introduced her. In that moment, a flood of distant memories came back to me. Back in high school, amid career concerns and discord with my parents. Why not start a business? She was the teacher who casually suggested it. Thanks to those simple conversations on the rooftop, I was able to take my first step into society. She was my benefactor, the one who shaped who I am today. And there she was, Mrs. Smith, right in front of me. Mrs. Smith, why are you here? Oh, it's nothing much. I told you at the graduation ceremony, didn't I? That I needed to take a step forward too. Mrs. Smith answered with a laugh. After you graduated, I quit teaching and started this company. I always knew I wanted to do something, but when I saw you take the first step, I knew I had to step up too, even though I'm older. She explained that to me and then pointed to Jessica. She's my daughter, same age as you. She opposed me more than anyone when I first mentioned starting a business. It's quite sad to be so negatively received by your own family." "Of course," Jessica scoffed. She quit her job the moment I graduated from high school, and Dad was like, "If Nancy thought it through, it's going to be all right." So nonchalant. The two started arguing in front of me, a typical parent-child squabble. It was so different from the composed Mrs. Smith or the manager Jessica I knew. Watching this scene made me smile. They looked at me. Their expressions seemed somewhat embarrassed. "You really took that step you talked about back then. And thank you for saving me," I said, thanking Mrs. Smith. "You actually went out into society and served well for 10 years. The reason we continued business with that company was because of you. It was only natural for me to employ you," she said. Jessica nodded. "As my mother told me, you worked hard and dedicated yourself fully. That's why the business continued. It wasn't because I had a special view of you." Mrs. Smith and Jessica both kindly assured me my 10 years at that company were not in vain. I had never worked hard just for praise, but I was deeply grateful that there were people who saw and helped me. "Your behavior saved you," Mrs. Smith said, bringing tears to my eyes. Since then, I've been working hard to contribute to Mrs. Smith and Jessica's company, the ones who saved me. Later, when I visited a client, they said, "I wanted to sign a contract because Kenny was in charge. That's why I want to sign with N's company now." We ended up getting new contracts under better terms than my previous company. Thanks to this, our company's performance has been on the rise, while my former company has been declining. The highly educated individual James had poached turned out to be incompetent, often upsetting clients and causing trouble for James. I was later informed by a former colleague. "They're talking about demoting him soon to take responsibility," the former colleague said, who was also planning to change jobs soon. The situation had escalated to this point largely because the president had neglected James' actions. James was the president's favorite, and the president at that time was under his thumb. Why do you think he was in such a place during working hours on the day that led to Ken's job change? When I was asked that question, I remembered that while everyone was at their desks or out for business, James was drinking coffee in a discreet spot. He was shoving his duties onto those with less education and slacking off. So that's why he was there. It turns out James often slacked off there, not just on that day. I happened to pass by in a hurry and bumped into him. The president overlooked this too. Everyone's preparing to leave because they don't want to be in such a place anymore. It seems that the competent executives are going independent, and many employees plan to follow them. I didn't expect things to escalate this much, but it turned out for the better. I expressed my encouragement to the former colleague and said goodbye. Years have passed since I joined Nancy's company. Jessica and I had become a couple. "Well, it's natural for young people who are together to end up this way," Nancy said, smiling happily at us. Working under my benefactor and having a special someone, I felt the happiest I've ever been. "We need to say hello to your parents," Jessica mentioned, causing mixed feelings in me. I haven't been in touch with my parents since graduating from high school. I was cut off from them. To think of introducing someone I'm dating with the intention of marrying to such parents seemed impossible. My parents. If you're going to meet his parents, maybe I should come along." "Yes, that's best. Besides, I was the one who saved him. There might be some thanks in it for me." Initially reluctant to introduce her daughter to my parents, Nancy began to set up a meeting. Casually seeing this, I reluctantly informed my parents about the meetup. Time passed, and when the scheduled hour arrived, my parents showed up at the designated place. It had been a while. I saw my parents for the first time in a long time and got a little excited. It had been more than 10 years since I left home after falling out with them. I did have nostalgic memories. Smiling, I greeted them, and my parents responded. "You haven't changed much, have you?" "Right, you haven't changed," they said without looking me in the eyes. At that moment, I didn't think anything was amiss. "Thank you so much for taking care of our foolish son," my parents said to Nancy and Jessica. I felt a bit uncomfortable with the term foolish son, but thought it might just be their way of speaking modestly. I let everyone into the restaurant Nancy had arranged. The dinner was going smoothly, and everyone had started to drink. "It's such an honor to have your distinguished daughter choose our son. He left home without listening to anything we said. We thought he might end up nowhere," my mother began to say. Then my father continued, "This guy, not going to university after high school and just getting a job, did something only a fool would think of. I suppose his salary is still low. He must be starting to realize I was right. That's why he contacted us." They started belittling my career like that. I wanted to stop them, but couldn't find the words. Jessica, despite the earlier conversation, was just giving a forced smile. "He's desperately living his life in his own incompetent way. I don't know what company he joined, but I'm sure it's not a great one since they hire people like him." In the next moment, Nancy splashed water on my parents. My parents were taken aback, and Jessica and I were too stunned to react quickly. I've reached my limit of patience. Listening to you two speak makes my meal taste bad. It's astonishing how much you can badmouth your own son. In a way, I'm impressed. You have no right to ridicule his initiative," Nancy spat out. At that, my parents' faces turned red with anger. "Who do you think you are?" "I'm just the president of the not-so-great company that took in your supposedly good-for-nothing son. Please take note," Nancy said to my angry parents, put down her business card, and looked at us. "Let's go have another drink," she said, leading us out of the restaurant. "I did something too much earlier, so I'll pay here," she added. We went into Nancy's favorite pub and had a drink again. Checking my phone briefly, I saw messages from my parents. "What's the meaning of this?" Explain to us. My father had sent me a message. Nancy spoke the truth. I replied before turning off my phone. "I'm sorry, Kenny." "No, don't worry about it." I had forgotten. My parents never really saw me. Ever since, my parents had insisted they were right, which led them to pressure me about my education. "Kenny, I like you just the way you are." Now I know. I truly believe I did the right thing by not following their path. Meeting with my parents might have been a good thing after all. It reminded me of the value of having people who understand me. I thought perhaps it could deepen the family bond, but with such parents, it's better to stay away. Nancy remarked when we got back to the company, her words making me realize that I had shared the details with Jessica, but not with Nancy. Given her free-spirited nature as a former teacher, she probably never inquired about my family situation. I think so too. If I had stayed with those parents, I would have ended up like James. I would have become someone who easily disrespects others. I was somewhat fortunate to have distanced myself from such parents early on. By the way, was there a reason you left your business card? Oh, that was so if you ever want to reconcile with your family, or if they reach out, they'd know the company name, and it would be easier to contact you. That remark made me think of my parents' faces when they belittled me. It was awful. Later, when I turned my phone back on, the messages had turned into insults like disgrace to the family, and you're just a fool. Seeing that, I honestly couldn't imagine a day when we could reconcile. It might be like that now. I certainly don't want to get close to your parents either, Nancy said. Nancy also had a bad impression of my parents, but having the willingness to make amends is necessary to survive in society. I thought about that and agreed. Just because we don't get along or dislike each other doesn't mean we can avoid interaction. But that doesn't mean you should sacrifice your well-being. What do you mean? If you had stayed with your parents, you might have broken down eventually. That's why the decision you made back then was wise, Nancy said with a gentle smile. I smiled back at her. Yes, I am who I am today because of that decision. Hopefully, we can understand each other someday. I hope for that too, Nancy agreed. I nodded, trying not to let the tears fall. Sometime later, Jessica and I got married. We didn't invite my parents to the wedding. They would probably get drunk at the ceremony and ruin it by bullying me. I have them blocked on my contacts for now. Maybe someday, if we can reconcile, we might be able to have a relationship as a family. When that time comes, I'll have them say I'm a proud son. That's right, Jessica said, laughing as I stroked her belly. Now she has our child in her belly. We plan to give our child a future full of freedom, just like Nancy and me. I want our child to try various things, but sometimes someone needs to be there to say stop. That'll be my role, Jessica said with a laugh, and I felt incredibly happy during this moment. There are people in the world who just can't understand each other. People like me and Nancy prefer to move freely without being confined by conventions. Others, like James and my parents, stick to conventional norms. The important thing is to care for others and not to deny their faults. Making an effort to understand each other is necessary for living in society. However, it's counterproductive if trying too hard breaks one's spirit. If understanding each other is impossible, keeping a distance is also necessary for survival. This experience has made me acutely aware of that. In fact, being apart has allowed me to live these peaceful and happy days. I wonder what paths our child will choose. With our kid being their grandchild, it's unpredictable. If we've got a baby boy, we will let him choose his path. I'll give him as much love and support as I didn't get. Jessica and I have made that promise. By the way, my mom said she's coming to see her grandchild. Is that so? Then we'll have to give her a grand welcome. I have a precious family that understands me. Thanks to their presence, I keep smiling from the bottom of my heart today.